what level 1 looks like in your technical drawing packet. I want you to look at this and notice a few things. First of all, this was made last year, so the nameplate looks a little bit different. I don't expect you to make the title bar this way. Rather, I will be asking you to make it the way that I showed you this year, which is more like this. So rather than these stringent dividers between every part of the title bar, I'm just asking you to write the information in there that we need, which is your name, the date, and the level that you will be completing for this drawing. Because the quality of the video from last spring wasn't very good, I want to redo the demos. I'm going to start with level 1, and as we look at this, we're going to notice a few things other than the different title bar. We still have that half-inch border around the outside. We still have very nice, neat, cleanly drawn lines. Let's look over here at the isometric view. That is the one that you will be given. You are not expected to draw the isometric view. In fact, please don't even waste your time drawing the isometric view. This is here, that's like the puzzle that you have to solve. You need to figure out what the top, side, and front views look like. And you're going to draw them in these different quadrants of your page. We're going to take a look at our isometric view, and that tells us what this object looks like. This one looks kind of like a brick. It looks like a rectangular prism. It looks like it is 2 inches deep, 1 inch wide, and 1 inch high. This tells us that the size of each of our drawings should conform to these dimensions. We're going to go and set up our drawing with that border and title bar. I'm going to do it really fast. And I've used a guideline height that forces me to write neatly, but it's still big enough for me to see clearly. Next thing I want to do, I want to look at my isometric and try to visualize what each of these faces of the object is going to look like. The top view is going to look like a rectangle. I know that because that's what it looks like from here. It looks like it's in 3 dimensions because that's what an isometric drawing is. But when you're looking straight at it, it's going to be a rectangle. So I can kind of sketch here and I can say, okay, that's what the top view is going to look like, just without any measuring, just so I know that it's going to look like this, and when the time comes to actually do the drawing, all I have to do is measure and draw straight lines and label it and stuff. And I don't have to worry about solving the puzzle. You should solve the puzzle first. So that's going to be my top view. And I know that this is going to be 1 inch high, and I know that this is going to be 2 inches wide because I'm looking here and I'm looking here. And I know that this line is the same length as this line. And I know that this line is the same length as this line. And this line are the same as this line and this line. And because it's rectangular, this line and this line are the same, and this line and this line are the same. So I know that my side view, looking at it this way, will line up with my top view because they share this edge, which is this edge. And that's going to come down here and look like this. And I know that it's going to be 1 inch high because I see this. And I know that this line is the same length as this line because they are connected by these edges. And since this is a rectangle, all the sides are going to be the same length as the one opposite them. And then when I go over to do my front view, I'm going to extend these lines. So I'm kind of planning this all in my head. I'm extending these lines over, and it's going to share an edge with the side view, this edge right here. So I'm kind of coming around to this side now. And I can see that it should be 1 inch wide by 1 inch high. Just like that. So now I have a good idea of what my actual drawing should look like. And you can do this on the back of a napkin. It doesn't really matter where that goes. So we're going to start out with the top view, because I know I want to place that in the upper left-hand quadrant of my drawing. So the top view is going to go something like over here. I'll flip my ruler around and use my ruler to make sure that that line is parallel to the border and to the title bar. I can just draw a light line, always light first, and then we'll go in and make it dark when we're sure that the line's in the right place and we know how long it should be. But we know that this line constitutes the top of my top view. And then we know that we want it to be straight up and down, so I'm going to go ahead and line my ruler up with the left side. And I've drawn a straight up and down, very light, almost like a guideline. And now I'm going to measure 2 inches, so that's from here to here, and I'm going to make that line nice and dark. Because 2 inches is the top line of my top view. And I'm going to come down 1 inch to there, because that is the side of my top view. And now I need to do a little bit of eyeballing because I'm not using a T-square, which is a drafting tool, a technical drawing tool. And I want to make sure that this line is parallel with that line so that I form a rectangle. So I'm going to do that. I can go over here and just check it, make sure that's 1 inch, and it does seem to be. And if you can get good at eyeballing parallels, this is going to be an advantage for you. Notice that I drew my guideline lightly all the way down the page to here. The reason I did that is because I know that I'm going to want to line up my top and side views. And I'm not only saving myself work, meaning I don't have to go in and measure the width here again, but I'm also making my drawing much more clear to look at, much more legible. The name of the game with technical drawing is clarity. The more work you can save the person from doing who has to read this thing, the better. And if you can make it obvious that 2 things that are supposed to be the same size are the same size because they look the same size, you are going to be putting yourself at a great advantage and doing a really good job of this. So you want to make sure that you are not only saving yourself time while you're doing the measuring work, but you're also making your drawing easier to read. So I'm going to go ahead and refine the lines on the top view now. And now I'm going to draw the side view, which I know, once again, should look like a rectangle. It should be 2 inches wide, it should be 1 inch high, because I'm looking at my isometric. And I can see that the side view is 2 inches wide and 1 inch high. So I'm going to put my ruler down along the bottom of my page, lined up with the border, so that I know that it's parallel and nicely horizontal. And I'm going to draw my nice solid line between the guidelines here. And then I'm going to lighten up a little bit and I'm going to continue across the page because I know that over here I'm going to be drawing my front view. And I need that to line up with the height of the side view. Now I can go in and finish my side view, which I know again is 1 inch tall. So I'm putting I just chose an arbitrary inch. That's the 8. I'm going to go to the 7 because I know that that's 1 inch. And I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to go from the 8, line it up against that line, and go up to the 7. Just like that. And then I can finish it up by connecting these two and lightly drawing all the way across, because remember, I'm going to need that top line for the front view. And then I'm going to go in and draw heavily to make the side view. So now my side view looks nice and neat, my top view looks nice and neat. All I need to do for the front view now is measure its width, and then I'm really in the final stretch here. So I'm going to go from 1 to 2 because I kind of like this position on the paper. I'm going to go up. Again, that's 1 inch exactly as planned. And that's 1 inch exactly as planned. And that is 1 inch as planned. I'm now done drawing the actual faces of the object. I still need to label and dimension this drawing. So let's start with labeling. I'm going to label my views in a way that it's easy to tell what the labels are describing. So I'm going to put my top view label up here above the top view. Guidelines first, and that's where I'm going to write. And my bottom views, that is my side and front views, I'm going to label down here. And again, just as with the guidelines, you want to save yourself work and make everything look nice by lining it up, like so. Let's have that be nice and parallel. So my guidelines are going to be the same whenever they refer to things that are on the same line. So now I can say top view, side view, and front view. To be honest, this text looks a little bit too big down here. And I would even consider redoing it, just because it's so big that it's distracting. I'm not going to do that right now, but I do just want to say that when you're making guidelines, you should try and get really good at eyeballing a good height. I think 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch should be the maximum height you use. I used about 3/16 of an inch up here in the title bar. Down here for top view it was more like 1/8 of an inch. And then I went a bit too big down here, and that's 1/4 of an inch high. I would say stick to 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch. It's going to force you to write more neatly, and it's still going to be big enough that it's going to be easy to read. Now I've labeled my 3 views, and all I have left to do is to dimension them. So to dimension my views, I want to start with the view that is informing the other 2. In this case, it's the side view. The side view is telling me how wide the top view is, and it's telling me how tall the front view is. So I want to put as many dimensions on the side view as possible. In order to do that, I'm going to draw my dimension lines coming off of the side view toward the top view like this. They don't quite touch because you don't want to accidentally make somebody think that those lines are part of the object. They're not. Then we're going to lightly draw our dimensioning lines in, but not yet, because also I have to decide what other dimensions I'm going to need. And in case something lines up, I want to make sure that I can cover it. So in terms of my isometric, when I put in these dimensions, I will have given myself the depth of the object and the height of the object. I still don't know its width. That is, I've been given the width in the isometric, but I haven't dimensioned the width anywhere. The width can be expressed in 2 ways. One is on the front view, from here to here, and one is on the top view, from here to here, because those are the dimensions given in the isometric. And if I give a dimension in the isometric, I want to make sure that I'm also giving the dimension in my 3 views. I get to choose now. Am I going to give that width in the top view or the front view? And I think just for the sake of making my drawing look a little bit more clean, I'm going to give it in the front view, like this. Now I'm all ready to start making my dimensioning lines. So to do that, I'm going to go like this. And these are lines that touch the dimensioning lines in which I will place the text that actually gives the information about how big those dimensions are. Let's do it like that. Notice again how I'm lining everything up if it's in a line. There's no reason to do these at different levels. First of all, it takes more time and it's more work. Secondly, it doesn't look as nice. Here come my guidelines for writing any text. Any and all text must be written with guidelines very lightly. And here as well. And now I get to just say how big it is. That's going to be 2 inches. That's going to be 1 inch. That's going to be 1 inch. This is the completed level 1 drawing. If you want to get 100% on your level 1 drawing, this is what you need to do. So when you open your technical drawing packet, you're going to see a series of drawings, and you're going to have to look at them and figure out, by looking at this, which is the isometric view, how to draw the top, side, and front views, right? Once again, I am asking you to format yours a little bit differently than last year. So there's a few things from the technical drawing packet that I want you to disregard. The first being the way that the title bar is formatted. I want you to format your title bar like this. This is the correct way to format your drawing. You see that there is a nice border around the outside that is a ½ inch. That is 1/2 of 1 inch from the edge. I have a ruler here. Check it out. Within a ruler, you always have these divisions between the numbers. If you see a number next to a big line, that is a whole inch, and halfway in between them, that's a ½ inch. That's about as small as you need to worry about for now. There may be times when I ask you to measure 1/4 of an inch or less, or 1/8 of an inch, for example, when you're doing your guidelines for your lettering, and that's when you can worry about those smaller numbers. But for now, I want you to get good at just recognizing where the whole inches are on your ruler and being able to discern between them. Now, the next thing you're going to do, once you have formatted your image correctly, you've got your name, the date, and what level it is. Notice I didn't write name, Mr. Zohar. I just wrote Mr. Zohar. I didn't write class because this year we're all just 6th graders. It's not major and core like last year. I've got the date. I didn't write date. I just wrote the date. And I've got level 2. That I did write. Okay? What you're going to do is you're going to look at your technical drawing packet. You're going to look at the isometric view for level 2, and you're going to think to yourself, what should these views look like? If you look down from the top, what do you see? What should this view look like? Top view look like? Can anybody tell me? Describe it in words.
2 squares next to each other.
2 squares next to each other is correct. The reason we know that is we see this square here, which we understand to be 1 inch this way, and we also understand it to be 1 inch wide because we're seeing that the overall width of the 2 squares next to each other is 2 inches, and we're seeing that the first square comes over 1 inch, which leaves 1 inch for the remaining square, right? I didn't need to tell you in the isometric that this is also 1 inch because you're able to subtract 1 from 2, right?
1 inch.
Exactly. So we know that, and we're just going to sketch this like by freehand to start with so that we know what it should look like. We know that the top view is going to look like 2 squares next to each other, right? And then we know that we're going to drop down those lines to get the side view, because that way we're going to save ourselves work and we're going to make our drawing much more easy to read. So for our side view, what are we going to see? What's that going to look like? Anyone?
Just 1 line.
Just 1 line?
Yeah, we'll just go in that way.
Okay, well, we've got 1 line here. That's the baseline of the side view. What else do we see in the side view? If we're looking at the object from this direction, what does it look like?
A square.
A square. Yeah, this part of it looks like a square. What else? Imagine you're looking at this object from this angle.
Mhm.
What do you see?
Also could be a cube.
A cube. Well, remember, in our different views, we're not seeing 3 dimensions. That's what the isometric is for. When we look from the side or from the top or from the front, we're only seeing 2 dimensions. So, for example, when we look down from the top, we are seeing the object's depth and we're seeing its width. And that is how we know that it looks like this. We're seeing the depth of the object here and the width of the object here, right? Because 2 inches, that's the depth.
Yeah.
1 inch, that's the width. And 1 inch here, that's the height. Right? So when we look from the side, we're seeing the height and the depth. So we know that the depth is 2 inches. What's the height that we're seeing? Again, looking this way, what's the height?
1 inch.
1 inch, right? Is that the only height that we're seeing on the object? Is it should I just cap it off like that?
Cap it off like that.
I disagree. I think that there's also, that's right, we're also seeing a 1/2 inch over here. So from this side, this object looks a little bit like a fat letter L, like that. Right? Because we have this part here that's a 1/2 inch high and 1 inch wide. And we have this part here that's a whole inch high and 1 inch wide. And they're next to each other, but there's no line between them. Right? They share this face. And it kind of looks like a fat letter L. So then I know, again, I'm planning ahead here. This is not my finished drawing. This is a sketch. I know that I'm going to bring these lines over to do the front view. I know that my width on the front view is 1 inch, right? And I know that my height on the front view is 1 inch overall. With that 1/2 inch coming up, because remember, what am I seeing? I'm seeing a rectangle here with another rectangle stacked right on top of it. Because I'm not seeing this depth when I look from the front. I'm just seeing this, and then I'm seeing this. Because those are the faces that are facing me when I come to look at it from this direction. So my finished drawing is going to look something like this. Okay? So now we're ready to just go ahead and fill it in. Let's start with that top view. I'm going to put my ruler up parallel to my title bar and make a nice clean horizontal line like that. That's going to be the top of my top view. And now I'm going to do a 2 inch wide line. I'm making little points on either side of it so I know where to stop. And now I'm going to drop my ruler down like this, keeping it parallel to the edge of the page. And I'm going to draw a line, how far? This line right here is going to be 1 inch, remember? Because that's this width right here. But I'm going to draw the line all the way down the page because I know that I need to use it for my side view. That way I'm saving myself time and I'm making my drawing more legible, which is really important in technical drawing, right? So here comes the line all the way down the page. And now I'm going to go back, I'm going to line my ruler up, and I'm going to measure 1 inch. That's from 2 to 3, because that's where my ruler is. You can do it from 0 to 1. You can do it from 4 to 5. It doesn't really matter. So I've got my 1 inch, and now I want to go ahead and measure that other inch right here, because remember, it's divided in 2. And I'm doing my 2 inches. And I can go over here and do the same thing, or I could drop this down and compare it to my parallel line, which is probably a good idea. So again, that light line there, and then we're going to go up and we are going to measure 1 inch down, and we are going to connect these two. I'll make a little notch on the center so that it's 1 inch in between. I'm going to divide that in half. So now my top view is done. I'm going to just lightly extend that line down. You can barely see that, but that's giving me a lot of information that I need in order to do the side view, which I'm now ready to do, right? So I've got the top view done, and now it's time to do the side view, which looks like what again?
An L?
Yeah, kind of like a fat letter L. So let's go ahead and draw the baseline of the side view. I'm just going to line my ruler up with the bottom border of my drawing, and I'm going to connect this to that. So I don't even have to measure anymore to get those 2 inches. But remember, I also want to extend this over because I know that I'm going to do my front view here. So that's going up. 1 inch height on that, as I recall. But I also want to give myself a little note that at a 1/2 inch, I'm going to need some information there as well. So here, I'm going to go up a 1/2 inch. That's from 8 to 7.5 because that's where my ruler is. It doesn't matter whether I start at 8 or any other whole inch, as long as I know that I'm measuring up a 1/2 inch. And I can give myself a little point of reference at the 1 inch so that I can draw this line across nice and evenly. And I know that it goes to the center. And I also know that it extends this way so that I don't have to measure again from my front view. And I'm going to do the same thing here. With technical drawing, you always want to try to make less work for yourself. Moving your ruler around, turning your ruler, that's work. Don't do extra work. Save yourself the time. If you're already doing a horizontal line and you have enough information to do another horizontal line, do the other horizontal line. That way, you don't have to go back and keep doing this and measuring. I'm already set up to do it this way. I'm going to crank out all those horizontal lines at once. That way, also, my views are going to line up, and they're going to be super easy to read. So here's 7 to 8. That's my whole inch for the front view. I'm going to come up. I'm going to do the side of the front view, just like that. I'm going to come up. I'm going to do the side of the front view just like that. Now I can do my other horizontal lines. And because I already set up those light guidelines before, I don't have to measure anything. I don't have to worry. I just have to put my ruler up next to them and draw the line. So now my actual drawing of the object is done. I've drawn all the views of the different faces of the object, right? I've done this. The last thing I have to do is label and dimension my drawing. Once again, labeling means that I'm going in and I'm telling you what you're seeing. So this is the top view, so I'm going to create a label here that says top view. And I'm making those letters about 1/8 of an inch high. I eyeballed it. You can do it by measuring, but you don't have to. I would just recommend that size because it forces you to write small. Whoops, that's the top view, not the front view. It forces you to write small while still being easy to read. When it forces you to write small, it kind of forces you to write a little bit more neatly. And I like that about writing small. But you don't want to write too small because then it's hard to read. So you kind of have to find that magical balance between small and legible. Now again, for these 2 views, I want to label them. And watch what I do. That's going to be one guideline, and that's going to be the other guideline right there. And I've just lined them up so I don't have to do extra work. I've got the guidelines. I didn't have to move my ruler around. Moving your ruler around takes work. Don't do extra work. Be lazy. Treat yourself to some laziness. Here is the side view. How am I writing? What do you notice about my text?
All caps.
That's right. Mr. Z is going to be picky about this all caps stuff because in our hypothetical world, our person who is reading technical drawings has a problem with lowercase letters. They are not legible enough for that person. So we need to write in all caps so that it is super clear, super easy to read. You can't get letters mixed up. You can't accidentally misread something this way. Or at least it's far less likely. And you can read it more quickly. Your brain processes the letters faster. Next, we are going to, let's see. Oh, there we go. I've got myself on camera now. Next, we are going to dimension our drawing. Dimensioning means we are putting in the information about how big the different parts of the drawing are. We're going to start always with the part of the drawing that's giving us the most information about the dimensions of the other views. In this case, it's the side view. The side view is telling us that the top view is this wide, and it's telling us that the front view is this tall. So we want to go ahead and put our dimensions in the side view first. How do we do that? We do it like this. Note the line shouldn't quite touch the drawing because we don't want to confuse our poor reader and make them think that that's part of the object. Okay? So those are the lines that are going to tell us exactly how wide the different parts of this drawing are. Now, watch how I do this. There's kind of a hierarchy to how the lines get made. First, I'm going to do this. That's going to give me the width from here to here. And then I'm going to do this. Check this out. That's going to give me the width from here to here. Okay? And the reason I know to dimension both of these is because, again, that information is given in the isometric. If I give you a dimension in the isometric, you're probably going to need to give it to me in one of the views, if not more. So now that I've done that, I have to choose which other, sorry, I'm not quite there yet. I need to also figure out, I need to give you the height, right? And there are two height dimensions. There's the ½ inch and the whole inch. And this isn't clean enough. I want them to be in line, just like that one. So I'm going to give you the height right here. Let's do it like this. This is actually a lot of fun. There's the height. We're going to do a little one here. And we're going to do a big one here. And then we are going to give the ½ inch down here. And we're going to give that whole inch up here. So we're kind of setting up our dimensions. Next, guidelines. So important. Because otherwise you don't know how big to make your numbers. This is 2 inches. This is 1 inch. This is 1 inch. This is 1/2 inch. Just like that. I have the depth and I have the height of my object. Am I missing any dimensions here? I'm missing the width. I have the depth and I have the height because I've labeled the side view, but I haven't dimensioned the front view or the top view, so I don't know what the width of the object is. We're missing this 1 inch measurement. So now I get to choose. Am I going to give the width in the top view or the front view? And it really doesn't matter. I'm going to choose the front view because I think it looks nicer. Always choose the one that looks neater. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give dimension lines up from the front view like this. And the reason I went up from the front view and not down is so that I can come over here and use the same lines from the dimensions in my side view to dimension the front view. There we go. Last but certainly not least, I get to do the most fun part. Layla asks, can I label all the views if you want? Here's why I would say don't. While dimensions are informative, they also crowd the drawing. They do affect the legibility. And what we want to do is to kind of give the least amount of extraneous labels and writing on our drawing as possible. So it's really best to leave it to the minimum amount of information that it takes so that everything is still really clear. You could give this to somebody and say, okay, take this, draw the isometric, and they have enough information here that they could draw this. Okay? And I would say don't do redundant dimensions. Once you've given a piece of information, don't give it again somewhere else, unless you need to for some reason. But you don't here because this is lined up. We're telling the viewer that this translates to this and that this translates to this. So you don't need to really overdo it with the dimensions. Now, we get to the really fun part, which is adding the little arrows on the dimensions, and I'm going to do it now like that. I love these little arrows. Not only are they fun to make, but it also means that you are done. It's so great to do the little arrows. And that is the finished level 2 drawing. I will be creating demos for all 8 levels. They're not going to happen one a week because, again, I'm asking you to complete more of these than we have weeks in the unit. So you're going to eventually be picking up the pace and working independently. Hopefully when you come to class, you are drawing along with me as if I am a balding Bob Ross. Okay? But for now, I just want to make sure that everybody understands how to do this. I will be creating the demos for the next few drawings very soon and uploading them to YouTube, and you will see them on the classroom website when that happens.